every other week meeting for tech governance as opposed to every week. Because what we discovered is that a lot of times, we're kind of groping around the issues, but without actually nobody having had the time to look at, say, an Ethereum or a Tejas or any of the other projects to see what they're doing or how they've resolved something. So we decided to take the time to do the research, do some assignments to individuals as to what they need to research, and then come back into the meetings every other week to review that, and so that we can move faster on some knowledge base as opposed to trying to, and best practices hopefully from the industry, as opposed to just trying to solve everything as though it's a nascent issue or a brand new issue in the world, which it probably is not.
Hey, Rao, you mind if I drop something in real quick?
Go ahead.
I think other than just Ethereum and Tezos, I think a really cool project to be researching would be real estate assets on the blockchain. So the two that I look at are real blocks that are teamed up with Aztec, and Fluidity, which is trying to make liquid real estate across pretty much interoperable blockchains. So that's just two snippets of advice that I'd say look forward to.
Okay, can you drop those links in the chat, and I'll capture those and make sure we take a look at those also.
Yeah, I'll throw them in the chat. Sure thing.
Thank you, Frank. Yeah. Yeah, we want to look at and learn from what others have already solved. Not that those solutions necessarily transfer as they are to what we're trying to do, but at least we want to be aware of what their rationale for their choices is, and then apply, rethink, remix, whatever it is, or create our own to guide our governance. So that's kind of what we're trying to do there. On the dApp development or RChat, so the progress is continuing on RChat. There was discussion of the RChat integration patterns in a couple of different meetings this week and last Saturday. This week's Casper meeting, Greg covered the kinds of patterns, integration patterns for something like an RChat to be blockchain enabled. And Steve discussed how we can take the same pattern and apply it to one of the open source voting, sentiment, and feedback seeking application. There's one called Polis. So he's kind of looking at how to apply those patterns to Polis. So essentially, there are a lot of open source applications out there, and we're picking the open source ones because we want the world to be decentralized, everybody to be able to run their own apps. So we're taking a look at those and saying, how can they be RChain enabled or blockchain enabled, at least as examples. And eventually that would be examples and patterns that enterprises can look at and say, okay, if I have a legacy application that has a database backend, how does something like an RChain play into that? So that's the idea with this exercise. And it'll give us, along the way, it'll give us tools that we can use in our own governance, both the co-op governance and tech governance. So that's where we are. Raphael conducted a couple of working sessions this week, both on Monday and today, to teach people how to create pages on Dappy. All of us went through that exercise. We only created test pages right now, but we'll be cleaning that up and actually putting real content on Dappy over the next several days. So that is my technical update. Are there any questions, comments on this portion? All right, over to you, Greg.
All right, thank you so much. I appreciate that. So we have been making a lot of good progress on the hackathon. We're interested in running a hackathon on the 10th and 11th of October so that this happens before we have the AGM. Rao put us in touch with an education group, an online education group that has reached into about 1,200 universities, and so we're discussing with them the possibility of using their platform to run the hackathon outreach to the students in the universities that they know about or they work with. So that's a really positive step forward. I mean, at the end of the day, what we want to do is reach out to the next generation of developers, right? And university students represent that next wave. It's very important, I think, to begin to influence the next generation of programmers and developers' minds. So any question about that? All right, so I guess, Rao, you covered the week, the community in review. Is that what happened?
No, I was only just, I mean, basically every time I talked about the tech governance and the development stuff. But Daryl has his piece to go through and he has a slightly different coverage of that.
Okay, all right, sorry, I misunderstood the flow there. Good, so let me turn it over to Daryl and then we'll pick it up from there. Daryl?
Okay, so here's the Community Week in Review from Thursday the 23rd to today, the 29th. So on last Thursday in the tech governance call, they reviewed the RChain improvement process, aka RChip draft, and each proposal. Rate limiting was considered to prevent denial of service attacks on RChain validators. Thursday is also the governance committee call. We discussed solicited topics of discussion from co-op members. We also discussed how to facilitate education to members to create the Rev address for voting at the AGM. And we also discussed the strategic plan working group weekly meeting. Also on Thursday was the DApp developer working group meeting. They continued experimentation with DAppy web page creation and discussed functional encryption for voting with Zulip. By the way, Raphael just demoed the process of creating user pages on Dappy to a group of us on Monday and today as well. And I just have to say that it's super exciting for me personally to actually witness what could be considered the birth of a social network being deployed on RChain. To me, it's super exciting. On Friday at the Climate and Coordination RCast, we discussed public transit in the age of COVID and the climate crisis, and Steve Henley's work with Beach-Tran in Florida, as well as Congress's new investment in the US National Park System. And after this, Greg discussed behavioral types. And if you want to check those out, you can just search RChain or RCast on your favorite podcast app. On Saturday, there was an RChat call, and they reviewed sequence diagrams for voting, and Greg drew diagrams for replicating Zulip chat data in RChain and using that to allow federation. The value of that general design pattern for federating applications was discussed. Also on Monday at the Casper stand-up, Greg talked about RChat again. So this week's Casper stand-up reviewed the RChat architecture and value propositions. And to check this out and the other previous 142 Casper stand-up videos, you can search Casper stand-up on YouTube. Also, on Monday, on the Blockchain Art Call, they talked about the need for cooperation and governance and reconsidered how blockchain can benefit artists. The standard artists' reserve rights and transfer and sale agreement was also considered. And then yesterday, Tuesday, RChain Education. Tuesday session was about the first attempt to extend simple Rolang to send a value and presentation about developing UI used in RNode client example page with lenses. Also yesterday, Communications Working Group We now have new Chinese community menu items on the blog, where Chinese blog entries are there in Chinese and translated into English as well. We discussed potentially bringing in the Russian community in the same way. We also discussed the social media accounts, the hackathon, transcriptions of RChain calls, and generating rev address how-tos. Also on Tuesday was the dApp Developer Working Group. Frank is considering implementing the voting governance first developed in Solidity for Ethereum. He's also considering development for supporting prediction markets. The October RChain Hackathon was suggested as a venue for such development. We also discussed the general idea Dan had proposed for translating Solidity to Rolang. And this morning, that was the members' hangout. We discussed the notion that RChain would eventually migrate its concurrency to the hardware level and explored open source hardware chip concepts. And that brings us to right now.
Yeah, I for one am really looking forward to the hackathon. I think this is a great time for people to share ideas. And it doesn't just have to be about governance or technical governance. It could also be anything from video game dApps all the way to land title registries. I mean, the door's really wide open at this point. It's really, really use your imagination.
Very cool. Yeah.
Thanks, Frank. Thanks, Daryl. Any other questions or comments for Daryl? Okay. Well, if I recall correctly, Steve Henley said he would do a quick run through of generating a rev address. Steve, are you prepared to do that?
Yes. Hello, everybody. Today, I wanted to just give a simple demonstration on how to acquire a rev address. And this is for everyone out there who hasn't submitted a rev address to RChain just yet for the voting in October for the annual general meeting. So what...
And to remind that if they want to get the 100 rev, they have to do this in the next couple of days by July 31st.
That is correct. So if you do submit your rev address to respond to the email that you received from membership@rchain.coop, if you respond to that email with your rev address by Friday, July 31st, you will receive 100 rev. So, but you can submit a rev address after that date up until some point in October for the annual general meeting. So so let's work towards getting a rev address, and what you'll do on your computer is you're going to go to the RChain.coop website. And from there, we're going to go to the blog. And there's two recent posts related to generating or creating a rev address. And we're going to select the one that says creating a rev address. So on this page, there's 3 links. And this middle link, which is the rnode client JS. This is the fabulous web browser app that Tomasoff created, which we're going to use today for generating our rev address. So we're going to click on this link. And this page was designed as a template page. It's not ultimately a wallet, but the idea in the future is that a wallet designer will take the back-end code on GitHub and use this to create a fabulous-looking wallet. So the purpose of this page, the layout is rather simplistic, but that's by design because it's more of a template page. So, and creating a rev address, it's relatively easy. So if we navigate to the middle of the page, we're going to see a button here that says New Account. So we're going to press the button and it says New Account. And what appears on the screen are 4 addresses. So we have a private key, public key, Ethereum address, and a Rev address. So just to kind of walk through what each of these are. So a private key, that's your main key. That's the key that you're going to be using for where your Rev will ultimately be stored someday on a wallet. That's beyond the scope of this demonstration. We're simply just going to look for get the Rev address, but it's good to understand what the Rev address is in relation to all of the other addresses that are out there. So and from the private key, all of these other addresses are created. So with the private key, you can create a public key, and the public key is the address that you use when you want to, if you want to send Rev to someone, they'll provide you with that public key. And so you would send it to that public key, and in the future we'll have an OCR image where you can scan the image, which is a representation of the public key. That's available in some wallets today, and we'll hopefully have that available for Rev users as well.
And would that be like a QR code?
Yes, maybe I used the wrong terminology. Yes, the QR code.
QR code, yeah.
Yes, thank you. And then from the public key, that generates an Ethereum address. And from that Ethereum address is generated a Rev address. So the Rev address is what, this is what you'll be using to submit to the membership at RChain.coop email that you receive. So once you, and when you open up that, I believe that there's a link at the bottom of the page, which opens up a form, and just copy and paste the Rev address there and submit that, and then you will have registered your Rev address. So when you open up this page, the template page, the default is localhost. So you don't have to worry about changing the localhost to the testnet or to the any of the nodes. You're safe just with the defaults. So with that, then you can go ahead and press new account to generate the 4 addresses. Now, I wanted to speak to something that's rather important, which is key management. So with this template page, when you close it, these addresses that you see, they will disappear. They're going to be gone. So what you need to do is save these addresses. Perhaps you might have a password store like Dashlane, or there's several other password protectors that are out there, or some other way that you store your passwords or important information. But what you want to be sure to do is save these addresses someplace so you can have access to them. So, because once you close this page, or even if you hit the refresh button, they'll go away. Now you can certainly go back and generate new addresses, but the idea is once you've copied and pasted and submitted your Rev address to membership at RChain.coop, you've designated that as your Rev address. So that's the importance of key management and saving the addresses that you've generated. So that is pretty much it with generating a Rev address. So hopefully everyone will be sure to take those steps and generate a Rev address and get that submitted for voting for the October annual general meeting. Very good. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Steve. This was really easy. Thank you. I got my address.
Oh, you're very
Finally.
welcome. Happy to help.
Thank you.
Super helpful, Steve. And just one thing that I like to do when I save my private keys is I shave my cat, and then I tattoo the private key onto my cat. And then I just make sure the cat never goes out in public while the fur grows back, and then I'm good.
Perfect. Love it.
Yeah.
So I wanted to add a couple things. For those that are worried about, is this private key being saved somewhere by the website and all that? there are the two options. I mean, the answer is no, it's not being saved anywhere. We have Tomislav's word that the moment you're out of that session, that data is lost, meaning it's not there anymore. He's not capturing any of that or caching any of that beyond your session. But you could also take the approach that Ian has suggested, which is you load the page first into your browser and disconnect from the network if you want to be absolutely sure, and then run the hit the new account button, save all the 4 fields that are generated by it, the 2 keys and the 2 addresses, and save them securely somewhere, because without the private key, you would not be able to access that rev address, that wallet that belongs to the rev address in future. So you have a couple of different ways. I mean, at least one way to be absolutely certain that you have control of your private key without anybody having that, which is the disconnect from the network methodology that Ian was talking about.
Yep.
But the web page itself, in case you're wondering, does not store any of that information. There is no log of any of that in the web page, and Tomislav has done that by design, so that there's not any exposure from one person to another. So,
Well, also, Tomislav published this as open source, and it's being, you can just go to his GitHub page and audit the code. You can even download everything to your local computer, run it completely from there. And there are a couple blog articles on blog.rchain.coop that have screenshots and that walk you through other ways that you can create a rev address. Because there's really no one way, and this is really everything to do with key management and generating private keys. That's really on the user end. It's not really part of what the co-op is providing.
Any other questions for Steve or Ian?
I do have a question. So in case you can't access your rev, what happens to the rev? Like you forgot the keys or you lost them. What's happening with the rev?
You lost them.
Okay, basically it's floating somewhere in the space.
The only possibility would be if there's a fork, and if at the time of the fork, people who have lost their rev, and can prove that they've lost their rev, which is a very difficult thing to do. Then at that time it might be possible to move those into an address that they control.
Got it. Thank you.
Yeah, so the blockchain is still the Wild West when it comes to any sort of hand-holding with respect to asset management. You've got to be able to manage your keys. Any other questions regarding Steve's demo or Ian's demo, or the time frame in which to get your rev address into the co-op?
When exactly does the 100 rev offer expire? Is it midnight, July 31st?
Yes. Well, midnight, August 1st, right?
Oh yeah, midnight, August 1st, right? Okay.
So yeah, which means 00:00 August 1st. So the people aren't confused. Any other questions regarding these topics? All right. So I was recently made aware of Avalanche's sale. And I think that's quite interesting because if you look at I think they sold about $42 million for a network that's almost exclusively payments, does one transaction a second. and largely just offers a sharding solution that, at least on the surface level, is similar to RChain's. What that shows is that there's still plenty of money in the blockchain market, and that there's a lot that the RChain community needs to do in order to communicate why our feature set makes sense. So I think that the upcoming fundraising should be able to be quite successful as long as we get the word out, and we can put the money where our mouth is, which I think we can do, right? Already we've got 4 community developed wallets. We've got DAPI, and we're beginning to get membership up, having their own pages up on the chain itself, beginning to demonstrate the value of that. And with luck, we will have RChat coming online about the time that we're in the midst of our fundraising. So I think we are we're very well positioned to tap into the market, especially since there's a clear signal, clear demonstration that there's money to be had, despite all the sort of vagaries of brought on by COVID and other situations. So I would love to have any thoughts or comments about that. Has anyone else been following the news regarding Avalanche?
The most I know of it is they have a foundationally strong team. I know Emin Gunsire coming out of Cornell. He's probably one of the forefronts in cryptocurrency. So just a lot of respect for their project and hope they do well.
I do hope they do well. Respect for them. But I think it's also very, very useful to sit down and look at the choices that they've made in terms of the features they support and versus what RChain can do. It's very interesting that the market would go in for that project, given the features. Any other questions or comments? Awesome. Well, I thank everyone for their time and attention. There will be updates that we can't share here, but we'll be sharing on the Friday call.
Greg, there is one more thing, actually. I don't know if anyone mentioned, but Ashton from Crypto Coin Show, he posted the video with Steve Ross Talbot, the new interview with Steve Ross Talbot.
Very good.
I will post the link he sent.
Thank you. Thank you. That's good. That's great. Yep. So let's definitely get the word out about Oh, I should also mention, of course, as everyone knows, the Epic is ending at the end of the month. And so rewards will be issued to those who are not rolling them over into their stake. And those people who are not rolling their stake over will also be given back their stake. Of course, all the rev rewards for getting your co-op address in will be issued on August 1st or shortly thereafter. All right. Thanks to all. And yeah, please stay safe.